appreciate more
All of
than
our
just
life
about
is
anything
all life
else
on earth
in my
depends
life.
on
Walk
the life
through
we
it,
live.
Here,
sitting,
author of The Gospel Master of Faith, and founder of ChristianWritersBookstore.com. Thank you for taking this time to listen to this interview as I get a chance to sit down and talk with some great writers, some great Christians, see what God is doing in their lives. Good morning, everyone. It's Michael Furlonger here of ChristianWritersBookstore.com. Links will be in the description below. As mentioned, we're working on a new project where we give more Christian authors a place to speak, to tell their story, to share what God's doing in the written word of modern Christians today. So today we have a guest named Kim Lengling. She has written several different books, but her Imperfect Masterpiece is set to be out in October 2020. Kim has been writing for over 16 years, and she's going to share with us how her writing has changed over those years as she has grown in faith. So here she is.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Yes, started writing 16 years ago. It was a bit of a fluke. A local newspaper asked me to maybe interview some local veterans, because I'm a veteran myself, to interview some local veterans and share their stories, and they gave me a monthly column. 16 years ago, I'm not educated in writing. It's just something that I found out as I went on this journey that I was naturally gifted with. And 16 years ago, I was not at a great place in my faith. So looking back, I see how my writing has transitioned. I was a little colder. My heart wasn't quite as open to God's grace, I guess. I didn't recognize it for what it was. But as I went on the journey of interviewing so many veterans and hearing their stories from the Korean War, I interviewed 3 different former prisoners of war from Korea and Vietnam. And hearing those stories, I took those stories, they went right into my heart, and I ended up carrying them for a while. And that's when I realized these gentlemen were sharing probably the worst times in their life. And they were smiling and laughing through the interview and saying, you know, even in the midst of war and all that darkness, and it might be nothing, but depending on where in the world they were, there's always one flower that's blooming somewhere, whether it's coming up through the cracks of rubble somewhere. And I get teary-eyed on this. But they, you know, all these years later, decades later, and they had such strong faith, most of them, not all of them. And I pray for them daily, but they had such strong faith, and it grew over time when they came home. Some of them weren't welcomed back very nicely, but they still found that faith and that spark. And that must have resonated with me and settled in my heart at some point over the years, because I look back and I see how I wrote 16 years ago and now how I write. It's much more now, is much more heartfelt and God-led. My niche is short stories and interviewing folks. And I love doing that because everybody has a story to tell. And everybody has a journey that they went on that can potentially help someone else, someone who's sitting in a dark spot and they don't know where to turn, and their heart might be closed off, and they might read something and that might just break a little crack in their heart and think, oh, maybe I'm not alone, because I thought I was alone for a long time. I believed in God, but I didn't like him. And that's just, you know, I'm always honest. And I went through a very tough time when I was in the military, and I carried that with me, and I let it weigh me down for years. And when I was able to, when my heart actually opened up to God and I felt his presence, it was like my soul cracked open, and it was so hard and so painful because I was letting that go. And I'm thinking, this is me. I can't let this go. This is such a big chunk of me. And it's painful when you let that stuff go and let God in. And it's, to me, it wasn't easy. And it's not an easy journey being a Christian. It's not. You have to work at it. And your belief in your faith has to drive you. You can't let outside forces, people, society, it's all coming at you with these little poison darts all the time. And you've just got to, you have to let all of that bounce. My new mantra lately that I've been saying for the last several months is let fear bounce. I can't let all that outside stuff drop fear on me, because that's just Satan, the way I look at it. I call him the D-man. That's just D-man shooting off his poison darts at me. I'm like, bring it on, D-man. I'm letting them all bounce. They're bouncing. 16 years ago, they probably would have landed exactly where he wanted them to. But now, through writing, and I have found that writing has been so cathartic to me. And I walk my dog. I'm outside all the time. I love being outside. And that is where I feel those little nudges and those little whispers from God. Because I used to think, what are these people saying when they hear God or God spoke to them? They are full of it. I didn't believe them at all. And the first time that I actually heard them, it was literally a whisper. And it came from behind me. I will never, ever forget it, because I got goosebumps all over, and I stopped in my tracks and just looked around and going, whoa, wow. And then over the next few days, other things started happening, and I'm going, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is what I'm supposed to listen to. Not all this other crud. But I don't know if that answers your question. I keep rambling. I'm sorry. I'm a rambler. But that's kind of how the transition happened and how my writing started. It was just a random thing. Well, seemingly random. Looking back now, I see exactly how God set me on a certain path, and where I'm at now, actually writing a devotional type testimonial book. 16 years ago, never would have thought of doing that and sharing such personal things, and how God shaped that and used it for good. I never would have seen that coming. And now I look back and say, wow, I'm really glad I listened.
No worries. No question was asked, but thank you for sharing. No, I definitely get the rambling thing. I have to remind myself to sometimes, Michael, you stop talking.
Yeah.
So, but you nailed on actually the kind of first thing I want to know was how your writing has changed since when you started 16 plus years ago, and are there like genres that you're like, I don't feel comfortable sharing with anymore or ever?
I prefer to stay away from the dark stuff. Life is not always light. And the folks that I talk to, are some of the stories, and a lot of my own personal stories are kind of dark. I think I shared one with you. I sent one to you. And it was actually entitled Darkness Speaks. And that's, from my own personal journey. I live with PTSD, post-traumatic stress, from an incident in the military. And at times, in the middle of the night, that darkness comes. And I have learned over the years how I can face it down. Before I would not. I just let it settle on me, and that's not good or healthy. But now there are times you're like, no, not today, D-man, not today. You're not settling in. I'm not opening the door to you. They say God knocks on the door. I truly believe that the D-man does as well. He doesn't always blast his way in. He knocks. Depends on your mood and your emotional state and where you're at. Sometimes it's like to me anyways, it feels like you're opening the door and you're like, well, come on in, D-man, just totally trash my day today. It's like you welcome them in, and knowing you're doing it. So when I recognized that, I realized, I gotta stand up for myself against him. and say, hey, I know who I am. I'm a child of the one true King, and he's got me covered, and his angel armies got me covered. It took me a long time to realize that I had the power to make sure that the D-man stayed away, or that I could kick his butt right out the back door. That it took me a while. And I often wonder if that's how it is for other people, if it takes them a while to realize that they have the strength to keep that away from them.
Yeah, I definitely have struggled with the dark thoughts kind of thing. Like I deal with anxiety and depression and stuff, and questioning certain spiritual things, like am I saved? Can God really love someone like me? And it's definitely a challenge, I find. And I go to, I think it's in James 2, I think it's James 2, where it says what does it say? Trust in the Lord and the devil will flee from you, or some.
Yeah.
Some, yeah.
One of the ones I like is John 1, verse 5. It's the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. It's just such a simple sentence. And sometimes it depends on where you're at. Sometimes I'll see that or read it and I'll be like, yeah, I'm having a crap day. But then if you really open your heart and read it and realize what it's saying, it's just such a short, simple sentence, but it's so true. The darkness cannot overcome the light. It cannot. And you have to have the strength to see it and believe it. Because I too suffer with depression and anxiety that goes right along with PTSD. So I can resonate with what you're saying. Because there are days it's like, how can I possibly be worthy enough for God to love? Who am I? That's a tough one some days. It really is. That gets me all worried. I'm getting all teary-eyed here. That's a tough one. And some of those days can be really difficult, and you just have to remember. But usually God puts somebody in your path or puts words in front of you that remind you. I've noticed that more and more as well, that someone will be put in your path to remind you you are worthy, because in your eyes and his eyes and God's eyes, you're a masterpiece. We're just all works in progress. None of us are perfect. That's for darn sure.
You mentioned this, how God, you messaged to me, you said nudge from God, but you messaged, I don't know, you said that God spoke to you behind your shoulder to rearrange your focus. How did God get your attention to do so?
It's simple little things. And a lot of times it's when I'm outside walking. I might be walking, having a bad day. I might be crying and praying and, just asking God, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. What is my purpose? And then all of a sudden, like literally, sunshine will hit a dewdrop just in the perfect way. And it sparkles like a diamond. And it's so beautiful. And just that little tiny thing catches my attention. And I just sit there and I'm like, that is absolutely gorgeous. And there's no other way that could happen without God doing it. So little things like that. And it might sound strange to some people, but I firmly believe that's how he catches my attention, because I'm outside all the time. He made me the way I am. And I'm out there enjoying nature all the time with my dog. We are walking all the time. And I've noticed so often in the last few years that when I'm outside and I'm having a bad day or I'm in a dark spot, there is always something in nature that catches my attention. It might be a fox that I see trotting down the path in front of me, and it just stops me, and I'm thinking, and I'm in awe at the beauty of it. Or a deer, a buck that comes walking across our path, and it's only 15 feet in front of me and not afraid at all. And we look at each other and I'm going, how beautiful. And then I say, thank you, God, for giving me that moment. and it brings me back. So I think that in nature, that's how God talks to me. That's how I feel. I firmly believe that. And I get those little whispers, like, stop. Just stop, Kim, and be still for a minute. And here, I'm going to put this in front of you. That's how it comes to me. Just be still. Just be still for a minute. And it usually works. He's pretty good at that, actually.
So you're working on a 3 anthology series called When Grace Found Me, Real Life Stories of Women of Faith. Are you working on this with others?
Yes. Each book is going to have 20 women, and they're all sharing their stories of when grace found them. The first book will be released in November, which is coming up very soon. So it's kind of getting exciting. All of the stories have come in for the first volume, and it's women from around the world. Actually, I've got a lot from Europe and all over the United States, and it's going to be amazing because they're all sharing stories. Most of them, this first book, they've never shared their story before, and for whatever reason, they felt strongly led to do it at this time. And as they're coming in and I'm reading through them, they are amazing. And I'm thinking, this is just 20. This is just 20 women. Can you imagine? Imagine the stories that could be put down in words and sent out there into the world, and where they land is where God wants them to land, whether it's an ebook or a physical book, and those stories land in people's hands. I have this vision in my head, and I've had it since I came up with the idea of doing these books. There is a young lady sitting with her head in her hands. And that's the vision in my head. She's sitting with her head in her hands. And it's a very defeated pose. And when this book came into my mind to do as a collaborative project, get all these different ladies to share their stories, I picture that young lady with her head in her hands. She's the one who needs to read one of these stories. Maybe not all of the 20 stories are going to resonate with her, but I bet you one will. And it could change her day or possibly change her heart. And I felt so strong about that. And I know that that's a God thing. I know that it is for sure. And so I'm just going to keep on going as long as he keeps nudging me to do so. So first book is out in November. Second one, hopefully February. And then the third one, hopefully in April or May of 2021. So we're going to do 3 of them. And I've got enough ladies that are reaching out to me now saying, hey, I'd love to be a co-author in the second volume or the third volume. So God's doing his thing. He's doing his thing. And I hope that the books do. I'm trying to be the best vessel for God at this time to get those stories out there. And I just hope that I do it justice. I hope that I do it justice. And I just know it's going to change people. I just know it will.
That's awesome. A lot of the Christian authors that I've been talking to, a lot of them are women, and they talk about. I don't get into it too much because I feel like I would be completely ignorant of everything. But there's a lot of issues that women come together to work on. I was just talking to a woman yesterday, and she's a minister, and she has a women's conference down I think in Nashville, I think it is. And another woman, she's in the UK, and in I think Nigeria, she's given over 6,000 gifts and toys to women in prison there with children. And anyway, I just want to say that's I wish you best of luck with that, because it's seems to be a very big audience, and a big issue that women need to know that they're together, and I feel like men are failing at coming together to spur one another and encourage one another. But this actually kind of brings us to our next topic. Is you've written a book, or writing a book called Imperfect Masterpiece, which you say is solely your book. It's a testimony devotional. So what is your main audience that you're trying to target?
Anyone who has struggled with their faith. Probably mostly Christian women, but that's simply because I'm a female writing the book. Many of the stories that are shared in there are, I call them wow God moments. When you, looking back, you realize, wow, that was God that did that, or that was God that brought me through that. There's so many different, and some of the stories, they're things that I've written down over the years, and I've just tweaked them and made them readable. But one story, one thing that recently happened, and I know it was a God thing, and I feel that people are generally hesitant, I'll put it that way, to share their faith publicly, to pray publicly. They feel embarrassed or think, oh, I can't do that in front of these people. You get all. And I used to be one of those people. And then I realized, not anymore. No, if it makes people uncomfortable because they hear me praying in public, good. Good. Because if they're uncomfortable, then they're hearing it. And that might be that little mustard seed that they needed to have hit them in the face, But one recent encounter I had, I was stopping at the veterinarian's office to pick up some medication for my dog, like heartworm medication or something like that. And this was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was the place was packed, but you had to all stay away and no one really knew what they were doing. There was no masks and stuff at that time, but the place was packed. So I'm standing there waiting. They told me I could walk in, quickly grab my stuff and leave. That was not the case. So I ended up standing in a corner because that was the only spot left. An older lady walks in. She walks right up to the counter and she says, I would like to pay ahead of time. So she pays and she walks out the door. No one else is paying attention to her, but she's got my full attention. She comes back in with a carrier and she sits down. She finds a chair, sits down, opens the carrier and pulls this cat out and starts hugging on her cat. And she's just sobbing. And I'm thinking, oh goodness, she brought that cat here to have it put down. And my heart broke for her. And no one else is paying attention to her. Not a single person. Not one person offered solace or comfort or anything. And that got my hackles up a little bit. And my name was called. So I go up, I pay for my medication. And as I'm starting to pay, this lady is just sobbing. And I hear no one going to her. So I literally grabbed all my stuff, put it through the window to the lady, the receptionist, turned, went across the room, kneeled at this lady's feet and said, dear heart, I have a feeling you're here for one of the tough things that you have to do for your sweet pet. I want to pray for you. You could hear a pin drop in that room. It just totally went silent. And I sat there on my knees, holding on to the cat and this woman's hand, and I prayed with her. I was crying with her, and no one else said or did anything. And I finished praying with her, and she said thank you. And she was just sobbing. I felt so bad for her. And I got my stuff and I left. I cried all the way home. And on Facebook, I shared that story. I said, I'm not doing this for any accolades or pats on my back, but I'm just doing this because more people need to do this. This was a hurting heart, and no one was doing anything. And the next day, I got a private message from a lady, and she said, I am the daughter of the lady who you prayed with yesterday at the veterinarian's office. And she came home and said, there was a lady I've never met before that got on her knees and prayed over me. And I think her cat's name was Charlie. She said, prayed over me and Charlie, and you have no idea what this lady did for me, because apparently her husband had passed away 3 months before that. So she had all kinds of grief going on, and a stranger, which was me, prayed for her. But I had an internal struggle at first, sitting there at the counter. I'm thinking, oh, I need to pray. Should I? Should I? And it was just a resounding, yes, you need to pray with her. Only took me a couple seconds, but I did it. And that next day, receiving that message from her daughter, through Facebook. I don't know who these people are. I've never met them, but someone shared it and someone shared it, and it ended up in front of her daughter, and her daughter reached out to me personally and said, thank you. You have no idea what you did for my mother last night. That is a God moment. And those are the types of stories I share in that book.
I think that's amazing. I for the past maybe decade or so, I've been going to various churches that talk about spiritual gifts and hearing the voice of God and stuff. But I cannot tell you how many times I've wept in the back of a church because I lost a loved one, and nobody comes to me. So just for you to recognize that someone hurting, that you can help someone who's hurting, I think that is just such evidence of the Holy Spirit working in you.
We need more of that. People have to quit being afraid to show that. Because a lot of Christians are. How often do you pray with a stranger in public? Not often. Not often. I think we need more of that. And I think God's calling us to do more of that. Look at the world right now. Ugh, it's a mess. So I think that's just me. It's my opinion. I think more people just need to, you can't walk on water unless you step out of the boat. That's all there is to it. And it's going to make you uncomfortable. But God never said it was going to be easy either.
You're starting a whole new topic that I know. But no, it's and I'm gonna go with this topic because I want to. But at our church that my wife and I are going to now, we're very focused on praying, that prayer, and that's great. Nothing to criticize that. But after like 3 months of this social isolation stuff with the COVID stuff, is around June, I think, and that just poured into. We've been doing church and life groups on the internet like we are now, and I just poured into them saying, guys, I'm falling apart here. And they prayed for me, but like when there's not a follow-up to prayer, when there's not a connection, I guess, there are people that I pray for because I don't even know what's going on in their lives. I haven't spoken to them since my childhood or whatever. But being able to just prayer with action. James says faith without deeds is dead. Jesus' parable about the Good Samaritan is another example that's been on my mind lately. Anyway, I just want to, I don't know if you need a congratulations, but, or thank you for going out of, getting out of the boat of comfort and letting people know that they are being seen and that you care for them.
Keep trying. What I've noticed is once you start recognizing that and you actually start doing that, it's not comfortable all the time. It's not. But I've noticed that God's putting more and more of those instances in front of me. And there are times I'm going, oh my goodness, again? You want me to do this again right now? Right here, right now? And then I laugh at myself saying, you're questioning God, Kim. You're not going to win an argument with him. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. All right. This internal debate I have in my head, I'm going, you can't argue with God because you're not going to win. But I've noticed he's been putting more and more of that in front of me lately. I have noticed that.
Well, as long as you don't get swallowed by a fish, I think you're doing pretty good.
That's right. I think I'm good then.
So I'm gonna have to go another direction, but hopefully we can do another conversation on just the power of prayer. And anyway, okay, I'm gonna just give you the last question. This is actually about your website. So you have 3 other books, which is Revival: Women Embracing Their Superpowers, Volume 1, Inspire: Women's Stories of Accomplishment, and Encourage and Influence, and a magazine called Motivate.
Yes.
Would you like to share a bit on these works?
The 2 books, they're actually I was a co-author in them with other women, kind of like the books I'm doing now with When Grace Found Me. The Inspire was done, I think, in 2014, and so that was the first time I was officially like published in a book. Because like I said, I've been doing the newspaper article, the column and stuff for 16 years. The second book just came out last year, The Revival. And it's again another co-author type thing, collaborative project. And Motivate is a new magazine out of United Kingdom. It's part of a networking group that I'm in. This lady came up with the idea. She said, you know what, we need a global magazine for small business owners and freelancers and things like that. And that was the first edition that came out, and I made the cover of it, which was weird, because I was like, oh my goodness, look, that's my face on a cover of a magazine. But I have an article in there too, and the editorial team on that end, they said that they enjoy how I write because I take the reader by the hand and walk them through what I'm seeing, and that was a huge compliment to know that this uneducated person, I'm not educated in journalism or anything like that. I went into the military. I didn't go to college. I went into the military. But to have people say, that your stories are poetic and that they really hit them in the heart, or they made them laugh, or they made them actually, tears coming down their face. I'm kind of proud of that, not trying to be vain, but I know it's not me who God gave me that gift for a reason. And I think that he's letting that gift shine in the last couple years now, because that's the timing that he wanted it to happen. Because I've been feeling lately I'm in some sort of transition right along with this crazy world. We're in some sort of transition. And I personally feel it. I can physically feel it sometimes, this transition. And I know it's God doing his thing. And he's not letting me know exactly what it is he wants me to do yet. So I'm just following. I'm following and doing what I think he wants me to do. And I firmly believe he'll tell me if I'm not doing it right. So I'm just following his nudges. That's what I call them. I call them nudges. That little, shove on the back of your head. And sometimes it's a 2x4 up against the back of your head when you're not listening. But yeah, that's how things started, actually, with those 2 books in the magazine, and that magazine being the most recent. When that came out, and I had such good feedback from people from all over the world that I've never met before, and this, talking about the story that I shared, and I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Okay, now, okay, I see your timing happening. I see how we're going, so I'm rolling with it until he tells me to stop.
That's amazing. I'm glad you're writing. I'm glad you're able to influence people. I thank you for your service in the military. I thank you, for your time that you've shared with us. Your website will be in the description below, so anybody listening can check that out. If your book will also be, the books that are available will be on the ChristianWritersBookstore.com. Again, it'll be in the description below. And if you ever need any help, if you ever want to look for a place to write, we have guest blogging and such available for you. But you should have such an amazing story. I'm glad we were able to have this talk, have this conversation. I hope we'll have time to discuss more on prayer and just how God is moving in the world today and in your own personal life. And that'd be awesome.
Oh, I'd enjoy it. Yeah, let me know.
Hey guys, thank you for being with us. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you'd like to support the author or support ChristianWritersBookstore.com, the link will be in the description below. Also, if you'd like to get some merchandise like this shirt, ChristianWritersBookstore.com, shirts, mugs, we got a whole bunch of stuff. Feel free to check out the merchandise section on the website. Alright, I hope you guys have a good day. God bless. Bye now.